Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. Quick video today on Mercedes upgrades to come for the Austrian Grand Prix and beyond as well. They believe that there's some small upgrades to come to pretty much every single race from now on, generally related to the design of the floor, but also saying a big upgrade is due for Hungary in just a few weeks' time. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, this image of Max Verstappen holding the piece of, I believe it's actually Gasly's car. Like, I think people thought it was Tsunoda's, but I'm pretty sure it was Gasly's car that he ran over and got seemingly wedged in the underside of it, with the underbody of his flooring, which reduced, people say, about 20% of the downforce that he was getting. Of course, meant that he was fighting with Mick Schumacher in the Haas at the end of the race. But of course, still picked up 7th place and only lost about 6 points or so to Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. But the podium this weekend was a Ferrari, it was a Red Bull, and it was a Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. And also Hamilton led some laps this past weekend, consecutive seasons leading at least one lap. Hamilton now broke the record there of that leading at least one lap in 16 consecutive seasons. Kind of remarkable. Whether he'll get a victory largely depends on whether this Mercedes car continues to improve. Yes, we talked about yesterday and the day before the possibility of this new technical directive could peg back the pacing of Red Bull and Ferrari, but certainly Mercedes also looking to just improve the pure pace that their car currently has. They weren't far off at all in Silverstone, and even in the last 5 rounds they've put up more points on the board than Ferrari have. This was the pace of the cars around Silverstone this past weekend. This is what their current car is capable of around a circuit, which obviously suits the car but also suits the driver very much. Right? We know Hamilton is a monster around Silverstone, and his average pace was pretty much identical to Sainz over the course of the race. Slightly slower than Sainz in terms of mean lap time. I'm pretty sure in terms of median lap time he was actually quicker, but still, if Leclerc didn't have any damage, you'd imagine Leclerc would have probably been maybe a couple of tenths clear, 10th clear, who knows, of these two drivers. And also Max Verstappen, of course, you guys can see right here the fact that these lap times on the mediums was set when he didn't have the damage, and then they dropped back by pretty much 1.3 seconds when he did get the damage, so maybe it was costing him about 1.3 seconds a lap, and if that was the case, then his average of a 1:33.9 might have come down to a 1:32.6, which would have put him, of course, neck and neck on pace with the leader. So look, this is the first time that the Hamilton and the Mercedes has been really anywhere near close to the front runners. Like, I'd have wondered what this would have looked like actually if we'd have seen George Russell complete a race as well. Was it just Hamilton, driving out of his skin, or was it the Mercedes actually looking rather good? But of course, like, they agree still, they're probably still the third fastest car, despite being as close as they've been to the front runners at any point this season. And who knows if this weekend in Austria actually favours their car, or whether it's going to take until maybe maybe the French Grand Prix, right, or even beyond, until another circuit actually suits their car a bit more. But they certainly have some updates to come that they believe will take them in the right direction, because this has been the key point for Mercedes so far this year. They had so many issues to solve with the bouncing of the car that seemingly they now have, that the other teams, Red Bull and Ferrari, could focus on effectively grinding out lap time, putting upgrades through, because their car was fine, Red Bull and Ferrari, effectively, but they just needed to make upgrades to make it faster. Mercedes had to fix the car, and then they can start thinking about actually making upgrades to performance. So that's kind of where they've been falling behind a bit, but now they get to kind of go through that development cycle that arguably Red Bull and Ferrari have already done and gained the advantage, or most of the advantage they're going to gain. Whereas now Mercedes come out and say the route we want to now take is increasingly clear. Now that is encouraging, right? Saying that, okay, we've sorted out the issues with the car, and now it's pretty much just about improving it as much as we can, which probably gives them an advantage on the development curve than the other teams throughout the latter half of the season. Now, this is what Michael Schmidt from Amos has to say on what Mercedes are planning to do. Mercedes aren't sure how Spielberg, that being the Austrian track, will look for them. It's going to be a good track to see how good the Silverstone upgrade really is, right? Saying, okay, the Silverstone upgrade obviously worked. They were closer in quali than they have been so far this season, although at the end, kind of warming up the tyres on that final lap in quali wasn't really there, but they were there or thereabouts in qualifying compared to the top guys. And in race pace, of course, they're pretty much neck and neck with Hamilton at the wheel. But of course, Mercedes aren't convinced that after what they saw from Spain going into Baku and Monaco and these other tracks that didn't work out so well for them, whether this kind of Silverstone upgrade is actually particularly good around tracks like Austria. They told me that they will bring small upgrades though to every race now. All of these upgrades will be floor related. So apparently they're really happy with the aerodynamics of the chassis itself, I suppose, and the front and rear wings, but it's the floor that they want to continue to upgrade and refine how exactly that looks. So they're going to bring further upgrades to the floor apparently, and they'll bring most of these upgrades until Budapest. So apparently the big upgrade is going to come in Budapest in Hungary, I believe on the 31st of July this month. Until then though, we have the Austrian Grand Prix in 1 week's time, or in just a couple of days time as you guys are watching this, and then also in 2 weeks time from the Austrian Grand Prix, it's the French Grand Prix on the 24th of July at Paul Ricard. So they believe they're bringing small upgrades to pretty much every single track from now on. The upgrade this weekend in Spielberg will be small. Mercedes have said the big upgrade will be something that we won't even be able to see with our eyes. Let's see what it will be. Maybe something under the floor that nobody will be able to see. So that's rather interesting, right? That the upgrades that Mercedes are planning to bring from now on, especially what they're calling the big upgrade, or what's being described to as the big upgrade, that's not coming this weekend, but is coming in about 3 or so weekends time at the Hungarian Grand Prix, apparently just before the summer break, is going to be a big upgrade that is effectively going to be undetectable, i.e. it's something where with maybe the Venturi tunnels on the floor or something like that on the underside of the vehicle that you can't really see with your eyes, and that seemingly is where their focus is lying right now. So I guess they believe the big upgrade, the small kind of tweaks they're going to make over the coming weeks will start to give them maybe a 10th here, maybe a 10th there, and with the drama that's going on with the TD with regard to Red Bull and Ferrari, whether that'll be enough to send them into a position where they can win races on pure merit is another question, but it's certainly been the case the last couple of seasons or so that Mercedes in the latter half of the year tend to produce a car that is at the very least capable of that, right, and generally do a great job with the development cycle over the course of the season. So we shall see, but Mercedes have improved an awful lot over the last few races. That is self-evident. Whether that retains over the coming tracks is also another question mark, but yeah, they believe big upgrades to come as well, and of course, look, we're also expecting big upgrades from other teams, but Mercedes arguably have the advantage of being able to make bigger steps just because, like, they haven't already done their key upgrades, because then the Red Bull and the Ferrari guys have, because they've had to deal with other issues before getting to that point. That at least could be argued. Just to mention a couple of things before we finish up the video, after the Silverstone Grand Prix with George Russell, of course, crashing out on the first lap, that now leaves Lewis Hamilton as the leader for the laps driven by driver. Mercedes now fall down to third in terms of laps driven by teams. McLaren leading that race, Aston Martin second, Mercedes third, of course, all, I suppose, well, Mercedes power engines. Incredible how consistent and reliable the Mercedes power is over the course of that engine's 7-year or so history, right? But, you know, still, of course, this can all change as the season progresses. And just to mention this as well, the longest active point streaks has built up to 7 races in a row now for Verstappen, 6 for Hamilton, and 5 for Alonso. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.